Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. If you are anything like me, then the first thing that you do once you wake up is check the daily casualty numbers for Russians to see how bad it is for them. And this time I woke up, I saw the numbers, and I got absolutely stunned. 1,710 improved Russians. I was, let's just say, more than shocked because we saw numbers like these only quite a while ago when Russians were attacking Ukrainians in very nicely, tightly packed columns that were driving along the roads and they were prime targets for the picking. 1710 in modern warfare, where the lethality is so high. Like, you know that previously we were discussing the lethality rate in previous wars, something like 1 to 3. So for every one killed soldier, there is like 3 wounded soldiers. Well, the current lethality ratio on Ukrainian front lines is 2-1. For every 2 killed soldiers, there is only 1 wounded soldier. That is the modern ratio that Russians are having on the front line. It is extremely lethal. So seeing a number as big as 1710 got me absolutely stunned. Thankfully, the answer came from Mr. Jaga Jaga Robert Brody Madjar himself that explained that what is happening right now at the front line is that Ukrainian plan worked. And Russians went on to the offensive operations thinking because there is like some fog and because there was a little bit of window opportunity to attack Ukrainians and because Ukrainians were pushing a bit too hard, they were trying to use this momentum to counterattack Ukrainians across different front lines, and instead they got drone in their faces, delivered very promptly. So much so, as you can see yourself, this is truly impressive. It's very nice to know that our analysis was so right. For a very long time, I already explained to you that Ukrainians that are counterattacking in the direction towards the south, trying to undercut Russian positions, is going pretty well for Ukraine. So much so that even if you switch to something like Russian propagandists' battle maps, you see, oh, sorry, I'm gonna move myself. You just see that they're basically showing, I mean, this is Russian war maps. This is not Ukrainian war maps. But even Russian war maps are showing, oh my God, look, Russians are being pretty much encircled. It's not the case because they are shit at map making, but Russians are basically showing on their own maps that Ukrainians are encircling Russian troops and conducting deep penetration into Russian-controlled territory, which is absolutely hilarious if you ask me. So obviously this is not the case. The reality was a lot more simple. I explained a lot that Russians, they try to cheat a little bit, right? You see all of this gray area that is now shown on the deep state map. Well, Russians don't really use gray area, so whenever they see, like, I don't know, like somewhere on the tip of the spear here, Russian one single troop appearing on some video where he kind of being scared of Ukrainian drones flying everywhere, pulls up a flag and tries to get himself a vacation. Yeah, by the way, Russians get vacations if they film themselves with flags. It's showing that they are advancing. But in all of those areas, despite the fact that there is no proof of Russian control, the Russian war makers and map colorists, I cannot name them as a military analyst or any reasonable way. But what they do is they just color everything red and says this is now Russia, fully controlled. And this obviously was working for them to an extent, because if Russia is constantly advancing, then they don't get into hot waters. Unfortunately, when they get essentially some counter push from Ukrainians, then suddenly they like, oh shit, we need to now somehow explain that we're not really controlling. And it's absolutely beautiful. Reality is Ukrainians have been conducting counteroffensive operations in this area, very successful. And I explained that at some point Russians would need to react, that a lot of analysts were underscoring that Russia still has resources and Russia is preparing for the spring counteroffensive, like a summer offensive campaign that they would like to do. But what this Ukrainian attack can really do is sabotage that Russian preparation. What it can cause is counter reaction from the Russians, essentially triggering them to start counterattacking Ukrainians, or else they will start losing some very critical position and all of their work will be basically multiplied by zero. And this is exactly what we got. With the results that I don't need to explain you even more, you already understand how bad it is. But Russian counterattacking pushes didn't really work whatsoever. Ukrainians, while obviously heavy fighting, there's a lot of Russians that are attacking. But generally speaking, right now, Russians are attacking across this southern area. It is caused by Ukrainian attacks, so Russians were prematurely triggering their forces that were not yet prepared, and they're just trying to exploit that opportunity. And it's obviously warms my heart to tell you that all of their current attacks are failing miserably, and Russians are just improving in large quantities. So my bet is in the coming days we will see increased numbers. It's clear that Ukrainians were ready for this. It's clear that Ukrainians have the resources to meet Russians. But again, we might see Russians start advancing on the front line once again, even in the southern direction, just because that's what they do. They just hope that maybe 1% of this 1,000 troops that they've sent towards Ukrainian positions maybe is going to make it and put that flag into the ground of already captured and captured territory. In the meantime, I would like to say a huge thanks to the people of Czech Republic that despite what their government is doing, they are not stopping in support for Ukraine. In Czech Republic's funds were collected for 86 Sting drones to protect Ukraine. Sting drones are these interceptor drones that are intercepting Russian Shaheds or some cruise missiles. They are a fantastic investment, and by the way, we are right now doing the fundraiser for the 93rd Brigade's FPVs. But some sources are telling me that potentially the interceptors are also on the way. So thank you so much for people from Czech Republic, and hopefully we're going to join you very, very soon. Additional thing that we need to talk about is what is happening with the 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. Because we already had information that supposedly it was approved for Ukraine, yet now we are hearing that Hungary is vetoing this and Ukraine is not receiving this 90 billion loan. What is actually happening? Well, the truth of the matter is it's pretty stupid European politics that's what's happening. Orban right now is in an election period, so he's using Ukraine as a boogeyman, and he's doing everything to spite Ukrainians, to provoke some kind of reaction so he can use it in his election campaign, because his numbers are not looking that great. So that's why right now there is a freeze of the 90 billion loan. I am very calm towards it, because while it's going to take a bit longer time, generally speaking, they don't really have the ground to stand on. Yes, for now, Hungary and Slovakia can say that because Ukrainians are not repairing the pipeline, that there needs to be a commission sent to Ukraine to check when Ukraine is going to renew the pipeline, and Ukraine needs to do all of these weird political dances. In reality, when the push comes to shove, then Europeans will pass through, because not only this 90 billion European loan has been approved, but more importantly, Hungary and Slovakia actually do not even participate in this loan. They are not parts of the countries that are going to be financing this loan. So we Europeans have very weird system. I know that. But the truth of the matter is that principally this loan is approved. The countries that are going to be supplying this loan, they are already approving it. And right now we're just dealing with a little bit of an asshat, and we're hoping for an easy resolution during the next election. If he's going to win the next election, then we're going to start rolling out the heavy artillery. Another thing that I want to touch upon on the European affairs is that Moldova presented the first plan since 2003 on reintegration of Transnistria. Transnistria is basically the Donbas region of Moldova. This was the Donbas Russian little green man campaign before Ukraine. This is where essentially Russians controlled part of the territory of another country and created so-called like People's Republic or whatever, something that is part of Moldova, but it's not really controlled by Moldova. It's a well-known playbook. That's why like when Russia did something in the east of Ukraine, while everyone in the world was like acting surprised, everyone's like, Europe's like, it's the same. They're doing exactly the same thing. So for a long time, this region has been very much pro-Russian, and it still is. The problem is it has right now no connection to Russia whatsoever because Ukraine is not letting anything through, and it is landlocked between Moldova and Ukraine. The question was always whether or not there will be reintegration of this region. And while I was hoping for a quicker resolution where both Moldova and Ukraine will conduct some kind of a force operation and just retake parts of these territories and forcefully integrate it back in Moldova, Moldova themselves have rolled out a plan that is fully peaceful and democratic, and they would like to essentially project cultural power and kind of reintegrate people morally first and foremost, rather than just grabbing the land while also denying the access for Russians. Will it work? I don't know, but the truth of the matter is it's still going to be a pain in the butt for a while now, unfortunately. And a brief mention on situation in Iran. Alexander Stubb, the president of Finland, has proposed a very nice solution. Beforehand, Trump has been stating that he doesn't really need allies' help, and suddenly now he does. Well, if he wants something, why don't we do a switcheroo, a deal, so to say, where, as by Stubb saying, he will receive help with the Iran and Strait of Hormuz, and instead US will actually help Ukraine. From my perspective, it's not the worst deal. Yeah, I know how we got in this current situation. You can write in comments everything that you think about this. But we do not have any love for the Ayatollah regime, and we are interested in restoring the functioning of Strait of Hormuz. And more importantly, we're interested in helping Ukraine. And you can also help Ukraine by participating in our fundraiser for the FPVs for the Black Raven Battalion of the 93rd Brigade. Last time people stated in the comments that I shouldn't be talking and saying we're doing great. Instead, I should be like doing the negative motivation. Then like, look how horribly we're doing. We are barely scratching the surface. Go help right now. Well, I hope this works better then. In any case, thank you so much for everyone that is participating. I appreciate it, and Ukrainians are appreciating it as well. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces, support Ukraine. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.